All right. Well, Edit, thank you so much for joining me today. This is our first video podcast. So I appreciate you allowing us to share this in a different way with listeners and now viewers.
Thank you, Gina, for having me. It's my pleasure.
So you have a really interesting backstory, and I just wanted to see if you could share a little bit about how you came into the work that you do today.
Yeah, so I never, thought of it that I ever gonna be a healer or a life coach because I used to be an engineer and then I was also very introvert. I didn't really like to communicate with people, or I was, more of the person sitting in the corner and everybody else was chatting. So back then, when I first was reaching out to spiritual help, it was when I experienced panic attacks, and that's how I got introduced to Reiki healing and then later family constellation therapies. And then I felt that it's really helping me with my everyday life. I was already in a relationship, I had children, I had my career with petroleum engineering, and I still kept this spirituality as a hobby, as a sanctuary. And I just used it as that. But then I also decided to quit my job as an engineer because it was so overwhelming, and then I felt unhealthy physically in my body and in my mind, and I also felt like I need more time for my children. So it was a big decision, and then it was the same time when I also did the Reiki master class. And due to that energy change and leaving behind that things, like basically I experienced a big transformation in my body. I lost a lot of kilos, like 20 kilos at age 42, due to like raising my frequency and started to eat differently. So it was my diet basically what changed completely. And that's how I started dropping kilos very slowly. And then it's added to my confidence. And at the same time, I continued as an engineer, but as a contractor. So I didn't need to be in a 9 to 5 position. I was more free. I felt free. I felt that the world is opening up. I have more time to get to know other things. And that's when I got introduced to karma yoga healing. I wasn't searching any other modalities at that time because I actually felt so great about whatever I achieved so far. And even though I knew that I have issues, or I knew I have some physical illnesses and so on and so forth, but I didn't connected the dots yet that actually those can be healed or stopped as well. So when I got into karma yoga healing and I learned about the techniques, the source memory healing, the samadhi meditation, I was flabbergasted. I was like, wow, this is insane that actually we can heal things from the core and then actually stop these patterns. So when I experienced it on my own body and then my own life, then I was like, yes, I want to learn more about this. I want to, become a practitioner, and I actually want to help people with this. And that's what happened. Like within 5 months, basically, I moved to a new country with my children. I established my healing business, and I was ready to go.
That is like quite a transformation. So I have to ask, because you're coming from this background with engineering, was that hard? Because I know people often are surprised with me, one, that I'm also an introvert at heart and I struggle with because I'm a little bit slower to process, but also that I'm very skeptical. So was it that you were seeing the changes in your real life in real time? Or did you have that little voice of like, well, I'm not really sure about this, or any like doubts about kind of your intuitive gifts or about the spiritual world?
So when I was a teenager, I had no connection with spirituality or religion at all, because in the communist era, in Europe, in the Eastern Europe, we actually didn't go to church, or we didn't do any religion because of the parties and stuff. So I was searching something. So I was searching some modalities, some religions. I was reading books about Buddhism, Taoism, and then I also had a friend at the university who was started meditating, and he was telling me about things like, oh, you can connect with the source and ask questions. So then also when I started the Reiki, I started to feel energies, with my hands. And then I started to feel that actually the energies are moving. And then I also had the experience during the family constellation therapy that actually a spirit is coming in me, and then I feel their emotions, and then I see what they see. So these experiences obviously took away all my skepticism, or all my doubts, and then also things how things changed or shifted in my life or in my health due to those practices. So during those times, like I felt basically on my body and in me the effects of all of those tools.
Yes, I can feel like your excitement about it. And I was the same way, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is working, or I'm noticing these changes. So I often tell Reiki students and clients who start to like lean into spiritual practices, potentially being practitioners, that often people feel they have to make this big jump between their current profession where they might be working full time and supporting themselves or their family to going into energy work. And often that, as you know, can be very difficult. So I usually tell people to lean in and that it can be both, and that when it's time, you'll just know when that shift is and to kind of lean further out. So, for you, it seems like you kind of followed that as well, where you were leaning out. And then when it was time to make that jump, you made the jump then and became independent and started seeing clients. So, I have to ask, was that a hard transition for you? I know for myself, it became a little bit more effortless, like as I approached that time where it was ready to make that shift.
Yes, it was for me it was difficult because it actually happened couple of months before COVID. So what
Oh my.
happened is that I just had the information from my company who actually gave me the contracting work as an engineer that they want to finalize our contracts. And then I was actually just on time when I was saying to myself, oh, I can't really do this work anymore. It was just aligned with that they said, we don't give you any more job. I was like, okay. So then what happened is like 2, 3 months, I was just focusing on clients, going visiting them in their homes in face-to-face sessions, and in London, in my area. And then suddenly COVID happened. And then with the COVID, like, lockdown, and then we couldn't move, we couldn't go to anywhere. So I had to start working on establishing my online business, basically creating an online course, online programs, having, and then proving to people that actually all the things I was doing with them face to face is works online. It took many, many months. So I was, yeah, it was really difficult because of this shift, but it was also really great because I jumped into this online things very fast, and then I learned all of those things in time. So within a couple of months I was also offered to be a co-author in a book, so I became a #1 bestseller in 2022 because of that book, because of the One Habit for Entrepreneur Success. So it's already pulled me into that crowd who was working on entrepreneurship online and basically working as a coach or healers. So it was really great because it's opened up the world. Because until that, I was just like London focused or in my area. And then bang, it was just opened up the world. And I had clients from the US and then Europe, other places.
It's amazing when you can like when I feel like when we're in it, like you can't see like that bigger picture until you pull back and then you go, "Oh my gosh, I see how this came together and then this piece and then you can see the whole puzzle." So, yeah, that's amazing. I love how that lined up for you. So you say that deep healing doesn't have to take a lifetime. And I'm sure that you've met people too, where sometimes it feels like we all have things that we're working on. And I know for myself, things that I'm still working on or working through. But what does like a 30-day transformation like really look like? What's realistic for someone who's hoping to really start to make some big changes?
Yeah, so if you think about it, like currently in your life, probably there is like 2 or 3 things which is like really urgent or really important to work on, or like really disturbing your peace, right? So let's say 2, 3 things, and then in this 30 days incubator, basically it's 4 sessions with me, 4 private sessions, besides doing the meditations and doing some other homeworks and videos. So in these 4 sessions, we every session we deal with one urgent matter, which was maybe there for decades, or maybe it's something just came up. Some I had clients who were following me for years, and then but now they had a information from a doctor that they have some urgency, and then they running to me and finally start working with me because now something happened. So it could be different issues or relationship, health, physical health, mental health, but they actually approaching and coming. So what is happening in 30 days that the urgent things actually can be healed. For example, I had clients who has PTSD with rape for decades, started from teenage years, and now she was in her 40s. So we were actually working on this with the sessions. And then one session we were focusing on her fear, what she feels when she goes onto the street, when she sees people who are reminding her to those people. So that constant fear. So in one session we healed that one. And then the next session we were like, okay, actually at work she has anger issues. And and it turned out when we were working on that anger issue that it was again going back to the same memories with the rape. So those situations causing her to be angry during work issues. So then we moved on to another issue which is bothered her currently. So those things, actually what we worked on, it was released and healed in one session, which means she's not gonna feel fearful again when she goes onto the street, or she's going to be more calm, more peaceful, and the trigger is going to stop because she released it. She resolved that basically from several memories which were related to the current issue.
Mhm. I find that true that oftentimes things are connected and we don't realize it. And then when something gets resolved, you kind of move into this symptom or area, and then you go, oh, wait, that actually goes back to that because this is kind of that root cause of it. So I find that really interesting. When you see like talk therapy or counseling, I know that for some clients, they will come and they say that, gosh, I feel like I've had 10 years of counseling, like in a session. And I know that I'm a big fan of counseling. I think it's incredibly helpful. But do you see areas that where like a talk only approach might fall short for someone? And how do you feel like these kind of different methods help fill that gap?
Yeah, so when I talk with my clients who went through sometimes years of counseling, they telling me that yeah, it didn't really help them. It was just talking about what I feel. What I don't like them to talk about things without release, because it's keep them on that low vibration. They keep them sad, or they keep them thinking about those negative situations without a complete release happening. So I always say them, this is not a speaking therapy. I don't even need to know what happened to you. You just tell me like, okay, you are in that memory, and then this is how it feels. And then I release them the emotions. So I don't even need to know the exact traumatic situation, especially, there is sexual abuse or other situations when they don't want to tell they don't need to, that's why it's so comfortable compared to a speaking therapy when you're speaking about your stuff to a stranger. And then, but here you don't need to. And then the other thing is with the speaking therapy, I heard people that what they already experienced in speaking therapy and why they felt already that it's helping them, because they brought them to an awareness. They haven't even had the awareness about their own emotions, or they haven't even had their awareness about their own triggers or their reactions. And during speaking therapy, actually, the counseling person is helping them, or the therapist helping them basically to understand their own emotions or their own reactions. So they go into that awareness level. And what's happening with that, they understand that, oh, this situation is triggering me, or this person is triggering me, or, oh, this is a toxic situation. So they learn when to withdraw, or they learn how to set boundaries. But what's happening with that, they actually limiting themselves in life, limiting their relationships, limiting their life situations, because sometimes they say, okay, no, I need a week of vacation, or I need 5 days away, or I don't want to speak to that family member for I don't know for long. So basically setting always boundaries and hiding under the rock is not the true answer. It's like really limiting. But if you actually know how to heal from the root, and then really releasing everything, the old memory from the old memories, then it got resolved, and then you're not going to get triggered with the same situation.
I agree. And then you show up completely differently because it's been healed on multiple levels. I think sometimes I've seen with people where we might get kind of hooked on that, like a mental or that thinking aspect of it, because you've talked it through. I've thought it through. I understand why this person acted this way or where that trauma came from. And I think that's wonderful and can be really helpful. But often it's those deeper issues. It's in the emotional or the energetic body that once you can help release that, it's like they both kind of fit together and you'll see real momentum then start to shift. So I think that's really interesting. So when we talk about energy work, you practice a Sekhem. Am I saying that correctly?
Yes.
Okay. So can you explain? I always found that fascinating, but I don't really know that much about it. So can you explain for listeners what that is and how it's different than like Usui Reiki, which we see here in the West more frequently?
Yeah, it's interesting how it was developed, because it was actually developed in the 70s, and that's why not so well known yet. That doesn't have such a long life like Reiki. So it was downloaded by a lady, and then she realized that these tools are actually not Reiki tools; these are different ones. And then she got all kinds of channeled informations when she created this, and it's connected to the ancient Egyptian techniques and Sekhmet. So basically, the difference is that some of the signs are the same. there are some signs which are the same, but there are extra signs. So there is like many more signs than in Reiki. And then the other thing is that when you actually bring in the energy, you bring it from Sirius Sun. So you attune to the Sirius Sun, not the source energy. It's a different source. And then also you also connect with you ground yourself also with the Earth energy. So the healer is first bringing in the Sirius energy, then down to the Earth, and then back to the hand. So that's how it goes to energy with Sekhem, not just, source and hand. And the other thing, it's so powerful that since I did that course, basically became or attuned to Sekhem, my healing sessions became much shorter. So when I was doing the Reiki, it was sometimes 1 hour, even sometimes 1.5 hours, if it was a tricky situation. But then since I've done the Sekhem, it's literally like 30 minutes and it's gone. Like the energy is like, whew. So it's basically,
It's amazing.
yeah, it's really powerful. And then it's just more amplifying the energies and more potent. Yeah.
That's interesting. So I know that you also talk about releasing ancestral karma, which I think is really an interesting topic. Can you explain a little bit about that? Like, what does that look like in practice for your clients?
So there are so many things we don't understand. Why is it happening to us in our life, right? What challenges comes for what reason? Because when we experience a challenge, we need to make a decision. And in that point, when we make a decision, we actually decide if we continue that karmic cycle or we actually stop that karmic cycle. And let's say the challenge comes to you and then you don't know if it's an ancestral karma or it's your own karma, or it's just a pattern because of your trauma. So it's or an ancestral trauma. So there is like more ways where is it and even it can be your partners, because when you change
It's
DNA
interesting.
with a partner, like you marry, you have kids, you change DNA when you're kissing and you're having all kinds of intercourse, right? So basically then you get their karma as well and their family karma.
Really?
So that's why it's so important
Yeah.
to have like a background check, like, and that's why it was so common, like hundreds of years ago. People really cared about the background check, like who is where are you coming from? Well,
Mhm.
gone. Now it's like, oh, I'm in love, and forget about everything, and then you can pull in so many karma and so many challenges just by actually connecting with certain people. And
That's interesting.
so because you don't know where is the things are coming from, I use all kinds of tools to, turn all stones. So basically there is several meditations I actually learned from my guru and then I applied with my clients. And one of the meditation is created just for ancestral karma healing.
I like that because I feel like for a lot of us, I think some of those deeper healing, it happens kind of behind closed doors. So I would almost prefer to have like kind of my own private space to allow what comes up to come up and to really be in that kind of sacred container. And then I love that they can then follow up with you to get more information or more guidance, if it's needed. But that piece to it, I think is really helpful. I think that there's a lot of need for ancestral healing that's been coming up. I think people are ready for it. So I think that that's going to be a topic that we see to continue to grow and people exploring it. So I love that you have methods already in place for people to begin to start to process that on their own and with you.
Yes,
That's
and
great.
one of the ancestral healing meditation is for ancestral trauma, and it's similar what you do in a family constellation therapy. But in a family constellation therapy, you are there with a couple of people for hours. It's like a big deal.
I think that's really needed. I think that that really shifts it. And the way that I have kind of read and learned that resonates with me, I was going to ask is that when we heal family trauma, like from our past, like our ancestors, that it actually gets carried forward. So it not only helps me, but it helps like my children and my children's children. And I just think like what a beautiful gift to give to try to help to clear some of the family line, like when we're able to. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I always say to my clients that when you take on the responsibility of your own healing, then you actually heal your whole soul family.
Mhm. Oh, that's beautiful. I like that. I'm gonna like tuck that one away. Thank you, Edit. I think that's great. Do you have a story without sharing, obviously, any identifying details that you might like to share that kind of gives us an example of like the work that you do or the transformation that someone's experienced?
Yeah, lately, one of my client, she was so cute. Yeah, she was the one who knew me for a couple of years, and then she went through heartbreak and grief and then all kinds of challenges in her career and in her personal growth. And then when she finally got an information from the doctor about a health challenge, then that's when she reached out. And then eventually we started to work on all of those pillars, in her life. And um, then when she came to me, she was really depressed and, sad and not happy about her life and not knowing where she's going, like feeling lost. And after the 4 weeks that we completed, then a couple of weeks later, I started to see her all over the place on social media. And then she was like promoting her new podcast and blah, blah, blah. I was like, and then I was texting her on WhatsApp and asking like, "Hey girl," I'm like, "what you doing? I mean, you are everywhere." And she was like, and then I asked her like, "What happened to you?" And then she was like, "You happened to me." So basically the sessions with me or the healing transformation that happened to her, like now she's confident, she's empowered, she's feeling great, she has plans and goals, and then she's just brightened up completely.
I love that. That's a big shift. Do you find that with like ancestral karma, like how does that typically present? Does that like present like with depression or, like when you see it with clients that you kind of go, I think there's some ancestral karma here that like might need to be addressed out of curiosity?
Just the saying that I can't really point out that is it ancestral or your own. When I have clients to work with, I don't really know that if it's ancestrally related or past life or this lifetime. If they say, "Oh, my childhood was the happiest ever," then it could be past life thing, or it could be ancestral thing, but you don't really know. You can maybe understand if you know about your ancestors, certain things, like what they were dealt with, if they were in the prison or if they've done something bad, if then you can have some clue about it. And of course, there are some psychic people who can, tune into these layers and then know everything. I didn't go that deep yet. Um, but what I know is that if we go through all of this healing process, we will find the key eventually. We will know that, okay, we did all of the healings about your past lives, your childhood trauma, and then we did the healings for your ancestors. Then basically it should be solved now because now you feel okay. But, there is a lifetime access to my meditation library. So if they feel later that, oh, something is still off, then they can go back and do it again, or something turns on now. Because what I learned as well, that they say that when an ancestor done some karma in their lifetime in a certain age, it could come to the inheritance, like to the lineage, to someone in the lineage at the same age. Like, for example, that person done some karma when they were 50, then that's gonna turn up when you are 50. So, and then if we're doing all these healings when they are 40, hopefully we cleaned with the meditations and it's not gonna turn up. That's my goal, and then that's how it's supposed to work. But if something comes later because they got maybe get to know people who they didn't know before, and then it turns out differently, because every second with every decision you step into a parallel reality, a new parallel reality in your life. So whatever decisions they make, it brings them into a new timeline. So in that timeline, who's gonna appear to them, who's they gonna have to make a decision about, and about their behavior. So I'm always saying that no matter what comes to you, if you are actually mindful about your decisions, and then you get into the point that you become mindful, which means positive thinking, positive emotions, and then making great decisions, then you're not gonna fall into the patterns, karmic patterns. So let's say your ancestral karma is that you gonna destroy maybe someone's marriages or something, and because you fall in love with a married woman. But then if you know that's actually karma, if you fall for someone who's already married, then you have the conscious decision like, yeah, I'm actually not going to do anything about this flirt or about this desire. I'm just going to shut it off because she's already with someone, right? And then I move on because there's 8 billion people on this planet. I'm sure there's another girl somewhere. So basically, understanding the consequences of your actions and your decisions is the most important, actually, with stopping karmic cycles. Is even if you don't do the work about karma healing, but you do work on mindfulness, and being conscious about your decisions, then you can still, stop patterns and cycles.
I agree with that. I know that. So I access the Akashic records and I talk with my spirit guides. And one of the things that they have said, or I know when I'm in the records, is you'll feel kind of like I call it a thread. There's usually like a pull, and it's something that you can't see in someone's like current life, but I don't know how to describe it. Like intuitively, I get the sense that there's a tug that you're bringing something in from the past life, that there's either a behavior pattern, there's something there that's asking to be resolved, and you can start to kind of pull in what that might be, which is really interesting. It's really interesting when it involves multiple people too, because what I have found is that they'll actually have different patterns of behavior, or something's coming up and it's actually paralleling something that they experienced with this person in a past life, even though it could look completely different. But I like the way that you describe kind of the timelines and pulling in. That's like also how I see it. So I think that that's really interesting. And I know that my guides have said that oftentimes when we are healing something, I know sometimes something comes back up and people get frustrated and they'll say, "Well, I dealt with this. And, like 7 years ago, I thought this was done." But you're a different person than you were 7 years ago. So you're bringing all that wisdom and knowledge in. And they sometimes are just asking you to process or to look at it a little bit differently, that there might be a little bit deeper layer that you're able to access for your own soul's understanding about that situation that maybe you weren't able to access at that time. So I always say that most likely, like, that's a good thing if it comes back up. It just means that you're ready to take a look at it with a little bit wiser mind and to be more emotionally able to process something. So it sounds like that's a little bit what you were saying as well too.
Yeah, and then also you become a much calmer and more peaceful person. So maybe similar stuff comes up. You are like, okay, but I'm not bothered about it anymore. It's just
Mhm.
a good confirmation as well that you already healed so much, because might it shows up again, but it's like I don't need to, react.
And I think sometimes the universe brings those situations almost to show you sometimes, look how full circle you've come. And maybe you would have reacted this way years ago, but look how you're processing it now, because it really shows you your own growth and that you're making different decisions about that situation or dynamic. Now, I know obviously you like meditation probably as much as I do. So, for someone who might be newer to it, do you have like a daily minimum that you feel that they should be meditating in order to like raise their vibration and help start to process some of these things or look for transformation?
Yes, my go-to meditation is the Samadhi meditation, which I also learned from my karma guru Sumant Kaur, and it's an Adiyogi Shiva technique. And it's really powerful because it's not the kind of meditation what most people do, like not just sitting down and listening to your breathing or observing your emotions, or observing your sensations, or maybe listening to your environment, or calming the monkey mind. It's not about that. It's guiding through you first, releasing and deblocking, balancing the chakras. So it's going through the chakras, and not just the seven, but the eight as well. The eighth chakra is the one which is opening the portal to your karma vortex. So it's actually allowing you to start recognizing patterns in your life, and people who were coming from past life, and you need to resolve karma with them. So it's opening up that karma vortex to see the bigger picture, and then it's also activating your pineal gland, which is also helping with your third eye. So being more intuitive, less worried or less fearful, and then you don't feel so lost anymore, because you start to have like channeling more ideas, more vision about your life. So that's the good thing. And then the other part is that when you activate the pineal gland, you get into like theta or delta brainwaves, when you start to produce necessary or hormones on an extra boost. Necessary hormones like oxytocin, serotonin, growth hormone, melatonin, which you produce when you are deep sleep at night. But some people don't even get there because they have insomnia or some other, sleep issues. So when you do this meditation and you get extra boost of these hormones, you feel more focused, you have a better sleep, and then you also in a better mood, and then you are much kinder, becoming more kinder person, and more vital because of the growth hormone. So just adding this 15 minutes or 20 minutes to your day is like huge benefits with many things I just explained. And the first 15 minutes is actually getting into that state. It's like my guiding is just getting into the state, but then you decide how long you want to be there. Like you can be there for 10 minutes, 20 minutes, hours, you can do the meditation before sleep and stay in there for all night. It's really healing, because what this does also is it brings you to the vibration of the universe, where is no negative energy. So basically it's a healing vibration. So anything which is sick in your body start healing in that vibration.
That sounds amazing, and I love that you deal with the 8th chakra because that's my favorite. So I think we're gonna start to see a lot more people utilizing that. But what I really like about what you said and that I would agree with is that when I sit in meditation, it is at least like 10 to 15 minutes before I go into that more like kind of state, the more meditative state where I feel like I'm accessing that level. So I think it's interesting that you kind of parallel that with your meditation. Obviously, if we're short on time, if I need to like pop on and do 5 minutes, like, yeah, that's great. But I think to really see the benefits of it, I do think that like sweet spot is at least 10 to 15 minutes. And then ideally, if you can go a little bit longer, it seems like a lot to schedule. But oftentimes, when you feel into that state and you feel that sense of calm and peace, you want to kind of linger there a little bit longer into that kind of like magical spot of like, oh, I want to see what's going to happen, or I want to kind of stay in this feeling of calm just a little bit longer. So if I can usually gift myself that window, I know that I'll tend to like go a little bit longer just because I feel really grounded. And then what's interesting is I always find that my days go smoother and I still get done everything that I need to get done. Actually, it feels more aligned, things go more smoothly. I have time for everything. It's on the days that I don't do it or I get too far behind that things start to get kind of wonky. I don't get things done. The day doesn't feel quite as smooth. But I feel like those taking those moments really set yourself up for to have a much smoother day. Would you agree with that?
Yes, and then you are in a better mood, more energized, and then just more clear. Have more clarity. It's really important. I think many people is missing clarity very often when they start their day.
So, as a success coach, do you have any like kind of like one or two tips that you can leave listeners with just to help them kind of either raise their frequency or something that you would suggest as like a micro habit that they can kind of plug into their life easily?
Yeah, so I recommend to also pay attention of their diet. It's really important. So it's like I can't emphasize it enough to my clients as well who's coming to me with anxiety and depression, and panic attacks. And then I'm asking them, do you drink coffee? And they say yes. And I'm like, that's the first thing you need to get rid of if you have anxiety and panic attacks, or alcohol. Like there are things you need to cut off if you really want to be healthy or if you're already dealing with mental health issues, obviously, right? And then the diet, what you eat, like for example, I'm gluten free, I'm dairy free, and I don't eat processed sugar. So those are the three things which I also recommend if they are aligned with that to actually drop those as well. But if they say, okay, no, that's too much for them, then obviously just alcohol, caffeine, and then make sure that maybe add some superfood, like spirulina or chia seeds or flax seeds, or some supplements, because I believe that what we eat doesn't have enough nutrients anymore, and vitamins, and we need those for a very good mental health, physical health. So I'm actually supporting that area, and other practices. Yeah, the meditation we already talked about, and doing something which brings you joy. That's really important. What brings you joy? Do that for at least half an hour a day, because that's really important. That's what's raising your vibration. That's how you raise your vibration, being in bliss, joy, happiness, in those emotions. And what's that brings you joy? Some people like art, some people likes to go in nature, or some people like dancing. I love also dancing and music. It's really raising my vibration. And then just feeling great about certain achievements. So just make a list, like what are the things which brings you joy, and just do them more often.
I think, and oftentimes we kind of lose sight of it, and that it doesn't always have to be like something that's like more formal or spiritual. It can be putting on a song that you loved when you were in high school and dancing to it. And I always say, like, if people saw my music choices, like they would be surprised because I love some high vibrational, chanting and things. But then I might be listening to something that's completely ridiculous that I just love that song in high school and it just lights me up and it just makes you smile. So, like, doing more of those things, I think, can be incredibly helpful. And I do agree with you on the diet and the coffee. My guides will say if things start to get like too cloudy, those are usually the areas that they say you need to start taking a look at this, Gina. And everyone who knows me knows I have a coffee addiction. I love coffee, but it's like I got to taper it a little bit. And then they will always encourage more water, particularly for me. But I do think that when you're doing energy work or you're trying to raise your intuition, water is absolutely essential. And most of us don't get enough of it. So it's like those small little steps can really help shift things energetically. It's like, how do we look at the energy body like we would our immune system and make sure that we're doing those things like exercise and movement and eating properly so that it's not just the physical body, you're also affecting the energetic body as well too. So those are great suggestions. So I'm sure that, life happens for you as it does for me, and that sometimes it gets loud or, something kind of knocks us out of alignment. So I wanted to know if you have like a book or a prayer or a practice that is like your go-to for when things get kind of off kilter for you.
Yeah, I believe that when people feel that way, it's like when they are doing too much. Like I was also always a doer. I was really like a go-getter, like I need to get my goals, I need to achieve this and that. So for me to rest and doing nothing, it was like out of, picture. And then when I started this Reiki or meditation practices, then I was like, wow. So most likely this was introduced to my life because these are the times when I'm actually doing nothing. Like that's when I really take break. And then when I do a meditation practice or a Reiki on myself, or that's when I can really just do nothing. And I think that's what we really need to understand, that we need that doing nothing time. And many times when I'm in Reiki, doing my Reiki healing on myself or doing the meditation, I start channel and then I get amazing ideas. As soon as I'm done with it, I jump out and then, I jump up from my bed and then I take notes or I start implementing whatever I was channeling while I was on my downtime. And why we need that downtime is that when actually not by the channeling is also happening, but you surrender, you don't do. So it's like the universe can do, like the energy starts moving because you are not creating resistance. Sometimes we are doing too much, that with the wantings, with the needs, with those, it includes negative emotions because you are like, oh, I'm not there yet, or I'm like, there is some lack or there is some wanting. So that creates resistance and even postpone whatever you want to achieve. So sometimes when you just rest and then you give up and then you say, okay, no, I'm doing nothing, then actually the energy starts moving and completing what you started. So people should have the trust and not to be worried about take time off, even for weeks in the summer, or just trusting the process, trusting the energies, and it's just not everything in their hands. It's much less in their hands than they can imagine.
No, that is very true. I agree with you. Sometimes it's like I'll be like, do nothing, and I do that for a little while, and then I can just feel the guidance of like, do nothing a little longer, right? Do more of nothing. And then it's amazing what sometimes those mornings or when I take that time, you get so much information. You've just like skyrocketed out just from doing the opposite of what our human mind tells us, which is I need to like force this, I need to do this. I have, oh, so we all do our to-do list, in the background. So I think that is really good advice. So as we wrap up, can you tell listeners where like they can find you, or if someone, I know you do a lot of different things. So is there like a suggestion that you would have for your work of like, here, this is a really great place to start if someone's unsure?
Yeah, so I have my website, which is editbkiss.com. And from there, you can reach all my social media, also my YouTube channel. And on my YouTube channel, there is a playlist. So you can start practicing the Samadhi meditation from that playlist. And there are also other awesome meditations like for manifestation and meeting with spirit guides. And I also have a school community. So if you feel ready to work with me, like in a group settings, we have live events, and then also there is an extended meditation library there. And it's a community where people all comes there with, with feeling lost, feeling depressed, sad, or PTSD or panic attack. So basically people who needs help in this area. So if you are someone like that and then you want to elevate yourself, then it's a really great place to come. And it's called Release with Ease. So the school community is skool.com, and Release with Ease is my community. So, and we love to have you there. So it's an amazing place to start your healing.
Oh, I love that. It just feels really, really good. So I will put all that information in the show notes as well so that people know if they forget or they want to just take a look and see what you offer, that how to reach you and to learn more about it. But I love the release with ease because that just sounds like, oh, just lightening up, right? It doesn't have to be like we're trudging through anything. And I think that's really important with any healing work. So wonderful. Well, thank you so much for being with us today. It was really wonderful to learn more about you and your work. So thank you.
Thank you, Gina, for having me. Thank you, everyone.